All right.
All right. Let's give Lydia some time here. Hello to everybody that's already on the call, on the live. We'll be getting started in a little bit as soon as our speaker comes on.
Yes, happy Friday, everyone. All right, let's see something. Fantastic. I see already some familiar persons in the chat. That's exciting. Thank you for joining us today. Hi, Atman. Hi, Brandon. Hi, Sonia. Looking forward to this event.
Let me try to see if I can ping Lydia.
Yeah, that'd be great. It'd be great if in the chat you could share where you're tuning in from. That would be fantastic. So everyone gets to know where you're from. All right. Let's see here. Hi, Selena. Thank you for your message. Oh, cool. Nice destination, Los Cabos. That sounds fun. Casablanca, love it. Anywhere else? Florida. Oh, wow. We're neighbors, Brandon. We're in Florida. We have fantastic, some folks from VR Technology from South Africa. Wow.
Okay, that's amazing. Yeah, I actually just was on a Clubhouse event with Lydia, so let's see if she's still in that room, actually.
We're gonna get started, guys. Just give us a couple more minutes. Great.
Well, she is out of that room, which she was moderating, so I think she'll be joining shortly. So
good. Okay, Brandon's from Fort Myers, Santable Island. Fantastic.
We apologize about the delay, guys.
I would put some good music, but I don't want to run into the same issues the other day. Oh God. Whoa.
Hey, Lydia.
Hi, guys. Hi, Boum. Thanks for your patience. I'm sorry I'm late. As you know, I was rapping.
I know. I was like, I was just on a call with her.
And then I was like, I don't want to assume. And then I couldn't like cut it and be like, hey.
Yeah, actually, it was a great conversation. I got the notification on my Clubhouse app, and I saw, like, I follow one other speaker. I wasn't following you yet. I didn't know like you were active on Clubhouse, and then it says with Lydia Idem. I'm like, I have a conversation with her in a few minutes. Let me go check out that room. And great conversations, great conversations. The speaker as well, Evelyn, she was very knowledgeable and shared great insight. Hopefully we could cover some of that on this call here today. So, well, without further ado, let's get started. Anthony, do you want to kick us off?
Of course. Happy Friday, Lydia. And
hi, Anthony. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. And happy Friday to everyone who's joining us on this call. My name is Anthony Miclet. And
I'm Boum.
And we're the co-founders at Afrika Startup Lab. We want to welcome you today. It's our third episode of Let's Talk Startups in Africa. It's a speaker series of fireside chats with entrepreneurs and investors that are paving the way in Africa. Today, we're very excited to host our special guest, Lydia Idem, the Managing Director at FMCapital Group. Thank you for being with us here today. But before we get started, let me tell a little bit more about Afrika Startup Lab. Afrika Startup Lab is an organization whose mission is to empower entrepreneurs solving Africa's biggest challenge by bridging the information, resource, and financing gap. Before we kick it off, just to explain you how this interview format will look like, the first half will be interview format, and the second part will open up for questions. I will be monitoring the chat, so if you have any questions, just shoot them over. I'll be more than happy to bring them up to our speakers, and happy to have you. I'll leave it to Boum and Lydia to take the stage.
Thank you very much, Anthony, and once again, thank you very much, Lydia, for being here. I truly look forward to this conversation. We currently have 24 years of investment and trading expertise in the room, guys. So, brace yourself. So just quickly, Lydia Idem, investment advisor, 24 years of investment and trading expertise, been featured in Forbes, CNN Money, has been recently named 22nd on the Twitter accounts investors need to follow, third in the top 10 women to follow in finance. We have a wealth of knowledge here today, and we are very excited to have you here. So without any further ado, please, Lydia, if you could kind of give a brief introduction about yourself to the audience on this talk right now.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Boum and Anthony, for that amazing introduction. I am pleased and honored to be here with you and everyone today. So I'm an investor. I'm also an investment advisor. I started my career trading. So I traded Forex for a long time, still do. Traded mutual funds before that. Really coming right out of high school. I like to tell the story that, I learned in AP economics. I learned about the stock market. Back then we opened the newspaper and read the quotes on the page. And I went straight to Charles Schwab, because my mother had the foresight to give me a custodian account when I was young, as well as a savings account. So I went straight to Charles Schwab, and I was driving at the time, just got my license after basketball practice. And I said, I want to buy some stocks. And they looked at me, I'm a 17-year-old kid. And they're looking at me like, well, do you have an account? And I showed them my account statement, and they say, well, sit down. And so I bought my first mutual funds right before I went to college. And those mutual funds helped pay for my study abroad trip in Italy. One summer, I think my third summer, after my third year in college. So that's really how I kind of stepped into investing. I learned about Forex trading again from my mother in 2006. It was 3 years before I joined Twitter. And so when I joined Twitter, I knew that I wanted to talk about something. I didn't want to just talk about I don't know what people are eating or what I'm eating or whatever. So I talked about the markets. And for that, I got this huge following. I really wasn't expecting it at all. I was just talking about the pound, and I was talking about Forex. And I would go to conferences, started to go to conferences, and people would come up to me like, "Oh my God, Faith Might, I'm such a big fan." I'm like, what? And I started being asked to speak at conferences, speak on radio shows, and it's evolved to television, finance shows as well. And now, mentors, people I've been looking up to while I was a trader, I was sitting alongside on stage. And so the journey has been really, really amazing. I made my first angel investment. I have a couple of angel investments in my own portfolio. I made my first angel investment on the continent in 2012 because of social media. And I realized, and I'm watching how technology and social in particular is democratizing venture. And so when I wanted to make the career switch, because my background is I have a computer science degree, and my background is in was coding. I coded right at the top of the dot-com bubble. And so when I was making a pivot in my career, I, reached out to mentors, and they asked me, they told me I should be a stockbroker. And I was just like, absolutely not. I do not, I saw Wolf on Wall Street. I seen Boiler Room. I don't want to do that to people. I don't have any parts of that. And I learned about investment advising. And so that's really what I wanted to do, was be a fiduciary for Black people, Black individuals and families, to build wealth as individuals, and then as a collective to invest in Africa. I wanted to provide access to venture capital, number one, as an asset class for their portfolios, and number two, to invest on the continent, because I firsthand experience, I knew that our dollars go further there. I knew the valuations were more attractive, and I knew that the opportunities were still really low under the radar, that we could be first mover and really take advantage of what I know is an amazing opportunity that is on the continent. And now it's, being more and more talked about.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for sharing that amazing journey into investing. And so you said you made your first angel investment in 2012. Was that in an African company or in the US or somewhere else?
So my first angel investment was in 2001. And that was in a US-based media company. It was a Black-owned company that was telling stories from Black lens, and that hadn't been done in 2001. This is, before Blavity. We only had BET, right, at the time. And so this was an independent outlet that was looking to do more storytelling through a Black journalist lens and tell more Black stories in the US. In 2012, I made my first angel investment on the continent. And that's actually an agriculture company based in Uganda called Raintree Farms.
Have you been satisfied with that investment 9 years, 9 years later?
You know what? I have. I have not received an exit, but I have received revenue share. So, we just talked about this in the clubhouse room, that model for SMEs like an agricultural company. And so I've received my investments back in terms of the revenue share model. I'm still holding my shares in the company. I'm really pleased to see how they've grown. I mean, when I invested in the company, it was just 3 people. And they didn't have any land, so they were relying on an outgrowers program to bring in more of the local farmers, right, to specifically grow moringa. And that was a crop that the farmers did not buy because there wasn't a market for it. And so Raintree developed the market for it by being a guarantee buyer for those farmers. So that program has grown to over 50 farmers. The team is like 30 people strong now. The company owns, I think, almost 20 or 30 acres. My investment helped them buy their first few acreage. So it's just been amazing to see the impact. I didn't go into it thinking this is an impact investment. I went in like, I see the opportunity in moringa. If you know about healthcare or beauty, you remember, cocoa butter was, really hot on the scene, and then shea butter came after that, right? And so for me, I was like, oh, moringa's the next thing. And it's taken a while, but now we're starting to see moringa hit the markets here in the US. And I'm really pleased to see now that the company has been owning the entire supply chain. So they're not just farming moringa. We've built a manufacturing plant on the farm as well. And now last year actually pivoted into selling retail products, moringa oil, moringa-based soaps, and facial wash. So it's been amazing to see the journey. And, like I always like to say, our investments on the continent are inherently impactful. And so you're just really just looking for the best opportunities that resonate with you as an investor.
Absolutely. I definitely would love to circle back around the agriculture space and kind of like investing along the agri value chain. But that is definitely a great example that you've provided there. So today you run FMCapital Group, and you mentioned that you provide investment advisory to your clients. Can you talk a little bit about how FMCapital Group is structured, the services provided, and what you've been able to do within, I think you started the firm in, if I have it here, or maybe do not have it here, since you started the firm?
Sure, absolutely. So we started the firm in 2014. FMCapital Group is an investment advisory, registered investment advisory firm based in the US. So we are registered RIA, which means we have a fiduciary standard. We're registered with our local regulator here in California, where we're based in the Bay Area. And that means we have a fiduciary standard to our clients, which means we have to put our clients' best interests first. We can only make investments that are suitable for them on their behalf. And the way we structure that is that we get discretionary authority for every investment that we make with investors. And so very different than a hedge fund where everyone's invested in the same investments. We really do customized portfolios for the client. What we do all asset classes. I love investing, right? So we do all asset classes for clients for whom it's suitable. And obviously not everything is suitable for everybody. So we do retirement accounts, we do brokerage accounts, set up custodian accounts and invest those for our clients' children. I'm really looking to create generational wealth. We provide education for clients as well. And then, lastly, we do venture capital as well as an asset class for clients for whom it's also suitable. We advise on real estate transactions. And so we really do look at the gamut of asset classes, but most of our activity is basically in equity. So stocks, bonds, well, bonds is debt, but stocks, mutual funds, we do bonds, so and venture capital as well.
And in terms of the venture capital activity, is all of that focused on Africa, or are you investing somewhere else?
Great question. Yes. So we are investing, I like to say we invest in Africa and Latin America. We really do focus on the diaspora that is also in Latin America as well as indigenous people. But we do also have some investments in our portfolio that are based in the US, and those would be underrepresented, underrepresented founders that are based in the US. But we really do look to focus on the continent and Latin America.
Got you. And from your client's perspective, how have you seen the appetite for venture capital investment in Africa within your client base?
So it is, it's always been there. It's been inherent. 100% of our clients are of the diaspora. So we have some indigenous African clients as well. So everyone's interested in the space. And for them, it's always been a matter of how. Like, how do you find the opportunities? How do I make a venture capital investment? Like, how do I know it's a good opportunity? How do I know this is even I'm going to get my money back? And so that's where we come in terms of sourcing, in terms of diligence, in terms of even educating our clients on just the asset class in general, right? We want to be patient capital. This is what returns typically look like. This is how long you're going to hold versus a stock, the liquidity, the relative liquidity or illiquidity as it really is in venture. So everyone is interested in investing in Africa and in Latin America, where there's an inherent understanding that there are outsized returns to be made. And we feel like we have kind of an insider's view because, this is basically our homeland. Our families are from there. Our families are there. And so everyone is completely committed to investing in Africa and Latin America. I have a number of clients who are also from the Caribbean or diasporas from the Caribbean. And so, looking at Latin America is something for them, is something that not a lot of people are still doing. I like to say Africa is the last investment frontier on the planet, but as I've been doing more work into Latin America, it actually is Latin America, which is, I think, where it is now is where Africa was 10 years ago. So Africa has a lot of buzz right now. And so it's for my clients, it's like, oh, we're looking at Latin America, we're looking at the Caribbean, like that's amazing. So yes, my clients are completely committed to the space and really have a preference for African and Latin American based startups.
Can you just clarify? You said Latin America in terms of like the investment space is where Africa was 10 years ago, or is it the reverse?
Is now where Africa was 10 years ago. So there's still a lot of there's a still big gap at the early stage in terms of funding in Latin America. Whereas I would say for Africa, it's more so at the growth stage, like Series A, B capital. I think there's a lot more early stage capital with, you know, the tech hubs and the accelerators and the angels and the angel networks and even the early stage funds that have proliferated across the continent in the past 10 years. So yeah, I like to say Latin America is just, you know, is the baby, if we, you know, relatively speaking, whereas Africa is now kind of a toddler right now.
So before jumping into your investment activity on the continent, I have one more question around how you serve your investors. So for example, an investor, you know, wants exposure to venture capital. What are the top 3 questions or concerns that they have before allocating, you know, some part of their portfolio into a venture capital vehicle?
Excellent question. So the first one is, when do I get my money? So we got to talk about that. So we definitely have to talk about the duration of the investment, the nature of the investment, the risk involved. This is, you know, you can not see this money ever again. That risk is there. It's not like a stock where the risk is more so that you will pull less money out of the market than you put in, as opposed to not receiving anything at all. And so we have to educate around duration. We have to educate around return expectations, manage expectations. We also have to manage just, you know, the duration. Like, this is an investment that you are going to hold for 10 years. So we're really, it's like real estate in that you want to hold it. You want the companies to develop. And then obviously it's not, because there may or may not be a market to sell these shares. Like with real estate, there is a market to sell. It just, you know, it might take you a while or not to sell your house. But with venture, right, you don't know if there's going to be a market to sell the shares. And so we have to learn about that. The next question is, how much money do I need? And so I like to tell clients that they should come in with $5,000, expect to make their first investment with $5,000, but that we're building a portfolio. And so this is not like we're trying to find the next Facebook or we're trying to find the next Paystack. Like, that's not what we're doing here. You're actually, just like with stocks and mutual funds, you are building a portfolio. Right. And so if you can come in, say you're coming in this year with $5,000 or $10,000, you make an investment or 2 or 3, because maybe you don't, because of the syndicate size, you don't need the full 5. So maybe you make 2 or 3. What's the plans? And we'll talk about this. What's the plan to have 5,000 to 10,000 next year? Because I want you to know that, again, we're building a portfolio. And so there has to be a plan for deployment, and there has to be a plan for building up your dry powder. And so it's a little different for us, because we don't have that historical wealth just sitting and waiting to deploy, right? And so we have to be more intentional about building the dry powder and then deploying that capital. And then lastly, I would say that the question is, like, how involved do I need to be? And so because you're an angel investor, you actually are much more involved in the investment process than say an LP who just invests in a fund manager and then gets updates, right? So I ask for a meeting a quarter, a meeting per quarter to review opportunities. I tell clients that they need to be involved. So some clients are saying, I really can't put, 5,000 this year towards an investment. Okay, you'll say this, like, first quarter, second quarter. Okay, but come to the meetings, because it's not that every meeting you're going to find an opportunity that you want to invest in. We allow our clients to pick and choose. So it's not that every meeting you're going to find an investment to invest, but you need to stay involved to keep yourself educated, to build your acumen, your investing acumen, and to learn from the community. Our syndicate is a community, and we learn from each other's questions. They ask questions that I haven't thought of. And so you need to just stay in the game, per se, so that you can become a better investor. basically. So I would say that those are the top three questions and then and things that I constantly are walking clients through. And it's a never ending. It's not like we have one, one talk about this. It's a continual talk. Like, remember, we're patient capital. Remember that these returns aren't going to be next year. Like, remember that you want to stay involved in this ecosystem. You want to stay involved in the meetings, regardless of whether or not you have capital. Like, I have a client, I manage their entire portfolio. So ventures of one piece. They haven't made an investment in 3 or 4 years, and they've just closed their first investment this year, but they stayed involved. They stayed involved. And I still will make personal touches because I talk to clients on a regular basis. So I still will, hey, you didn't participate in this meeting. I think you should look at this investment. And for this particular clients, they made their first venture investment this year. So really excited for them, and really just excited for the opportunities that clients get when they work with us.
Amazing. So shifting over to your investment activity on the continent, first question would be, how do you source your deals and how do you pick and choose the companies you look at?
So I'll speak generally because I kind of wear different hats. Like I do look for investments for a fund and then also for clients. So just generally speaking, sourcing deals is far and away has been social media and events like this, where, you can meet people in the chat or whatever. And so that's in person, prior to the pandemic, it was in-person events by far, and referrals. Now it's actually been referrals from other investors, and now it's been referrals from founders in our portfolio. So that's really been amazing. It's just kind of a testament to working with us, which I'm really pleased about. So that's how we source deals. Oh, and last thing is my clients. My clients now are bringing me deals. They don't have the time to source them, or they don't have the time to diligence them, or to even, vet it. Let's just say vet it, right? So I do that work. So yeah, my clients are bringing me more and more deals every week by week. I'm getting more deals from them, and it's really been super amazing. And so it's just a matter of, hey, I see this company. Can I make an introduction? We make the introduction, and then I start the vetting process. What I'm looking for clients in particular. Now, I will just say generally, what I look for is I look for a big problem that they're solving. And again, because my family is from Nigeria, because I've spent time in Nigeria, because my clients are from various countries on the continent, like we understand pain points, or we're familiar with pain points. We've experienced these pain points. And so I'm really looking for founders who are solving these pain points and have a really deep understanding of the sector that they're working in. On top of that, I really would like for them to have a relationship with the regulators in that sector. I think it's super important because all of this innovation is new, and most of the governance on the continent is being done by the older generation, a generation that does not understand tech, that did not grow up, in this era. They grew up in an era of investing that was hard assets only, commodities and land, basically, right? And so all of this innovation can be new or scary, and they tend to rule it with a real iron fist and an all or nothing approach. And so I really like to see founders who know the regulators, are talking with them, are communicating with them, educating them on the innovation that's happening in their space. And I wouldn't say that we look for traction, but we like it. We want to see that you have users. We want to see that you're making some money. But it's not because we invest so early. It's obviously not like a number one priority.
And do you currently have a specific industry that you are focused on, or are you agnostic?
So right now at the early stage, we are sector agnostic. We like to see everything.
Great. Last time we spoke, you were telling me about, you had started fundraising for a growth fund. I'm curious to know how that has been coming along, and how you're looking to, how is your fund activity currently?
So still fundraising. And it's been coming along. So, since we last spoke, we do have some interest from investors, which is really exciting. Investors outside of the US as well. So that's just been really great, I feel, just to kind of broaden our investor base beyond the US. But I talk to everybody. I'm really interested in speaking with pension funds, managers, local pools of capital on the local to the continent. Really interested in I know a lot of people, a lot of fund managers have been doing this work. So I just want to, step into their footsteps or stand on their shoulders and continue pushing on this door to this local African pool of capital. It's there. And eventually it's going to crack open and flood us all with the capital that we know we deserve and need. Right. So, but I would say, so is it arduous? I'd like to say it's a journey. And I'm having a good time with it. I don't like to use any kind of negative adjectives, it's just a journey. It is what it is. And I'm having actually a good time with it, just speaking to everybody about the global South as I've coined it, and just really looking at the entire global South, including, Latin America, Caribbean, Southeast Asia, South Asia, as well as Africa. And really interested in just talking with folks about the trends that I see in the region. And again, like you guys know, I say all the time, it's the last investment frontier. And I think my experiences, my networks provide LPs with amazing opportunities to some of the best in class companies.
So talking about these best in class companies, how do you walk us through a little bit of your due diligence process, and how do you pick and choose once you've initiated a relationship or conversation with a company?
Awesome. So due diligence happens after we've had several conversations. So after determine like this is a really great opportunity and present it to clients, we host a conversation with the founder. And so we don't founders are free to kind of frame that conversation. Some will like to do a demo, some will like to pitch, but I really want it to just to be a conversation where we're talking about the company, because I've already shown the pitch deck. So we're talking about the company and they're engaging with my client investors as well. And so that they get the opportunity to interact directly with the founder as well, give them that opportunity to ask their questions directly. And then after that, we go into if there's further interest, we're ready to invest, then we do due diligence. And due diligence for us, because we're early stage, it is, even though we're early stage, it is a background check. It's a background check on the company. It's a background check on the founders and the executive team. And so, I say background check just to give everyone like that. Everyone kind of understands what that looks like. I don't think it's extensive, but I do think that relative, as we're doing more co-investing with other angel investors in particular, I think that our diligence is a little bit more, maybe more thorough, more robust. We do look for a few more things than I think, well, not that I think, but other angel investors have told me, oh, we don't need all that. Like, well, we kind of do. So we like to look at, registration. We want to make sure that you're incorporated. It doesn't matter to us where you're incorporated. So I guess we're kind of, country agnostic as well. We just want to make sure you have a vehicle, a corporate vehicle that have shares declared, and that, you have associated accounts and different paperwork like that. The founders is just really their background. We want to know that they're, what their background is. Do they have a brand? How long have they been in the space? That kind of thing. And so although that checks out, then we will make our investment with the expectation that we receive monthly updates or quarterly updates, depending on what stage the company is actually in.
How often is it the case that a founding team clears the initial conversations, there is investment interest, and they get into due diligence and they don't have their ducks in a row?
This is what I wanted to come to too. So thank you for asking this. So it actually happens more often than you think. And it's not a knock to founders. on one hand, yes, when you go out fundraising, you should have, everything in a row. But on the other hand, you don't know what investors are going to ask for. We all ask for different things, right? So you're not really always sure what to ask for. I do think you can have a data room kind of set up and ready with at least registration documents and things like that. But it's absolutely happening more often. If you had asked me a year ago, I would have said, no, not often. We get through due diligence really quickly. Not the case in a year, and I don't think it has anything to do with COVID. I just think that we're doing more investments than we have before, and we're just coming up. I guess our sample size is larger, and we are finding, that founders take a bit of time to get their documents together, to respond with the documentation that we'd like to see. And just a caveat, these documents, just produce them. There's not, I don't think, some of the founders I've spoken with, oh, well, we want to get you something that, you can work with. You don't need to do that. We just want to see what you have. It's not necessarily a ding if it's not a certain kind of way. It's more like, do you have it? And I think, founders should keep that in mind, and particularly when you're raising at your earliest stages. We're just wanting to see if you have it. We're not necessarily looking for if you have a certain thing, or if it's typed up a certain way, or if you have certain criteria in the document. You can, though, I think that level of diligence is for when you are a more mature company. But I would say for founders at the early stage, it's just really important that you're producing the documents and that you can produce them in a timely fashion.
So for the founders on this call, can you provide kind of like, I know this specific activities in the early stages, what's the average check size that you cut to early stage companies?
Yeah, so I'd like to say we are due upwards of 15,000. That's been our historical mean. I'm happy to say, because we've really exploded in size in terms of our growth at our syndicate, that we are now looking at upwards of $25,000 to $30,000 checks in early stage companies.
Great, thank you for sharing that. So there's been quite a few questions in the chat, so I'm going to switch over to the questions from the chat, and then if we have a little bit of time, I'll ask a few more questions. So there was a question that came around, what was it like being a female early in your industry, in the investment industry?
That's a great question. Well, as you can imagine, it was very male and very white. And I just want to be absolutely candid with you, because I started in traditional asset management, stocks, mutual funds, bonds, and Forex. Very, very, very male. Very, very, very white. I would not see any Black people at conferences. I would see dark-skinned people, but they would be of Indian descent. I would be the only Black person in a 1,000-person room. Luckily for me, I grew up in predominantly white spaces. I went to a private elementary and middle school. Then I went to a public high school, so it was much more diverse. And then my college and business schools have been at predominantly white institutions. So I know how to navigate these spaces. I mean, I'll never forget, because I'm a computer science major at College of Engineering. I took like electrical engineering class, and I was in class, sat in the middle front, and just kind of looked up and just looked around. I was like, I am the only woman in this room. You guys, I've never been in a space where I was the only woman, ever. Maybe the only Black person, but never the only woman. That was crazy to me. That was my first taste of that. And little did I know that, that would just be a precursor for my career. So it was, but I never felt any bias for that. Do you know what I mean? I never felt negativity for it. Yeah, you can sense bias, right? You can sense it. Like we all have those experiences, but I feel like I was very welcomed. I felt like a lot of people wanted wanted me in their spaces. They, and I think a lot of these invitations that I received were to diversify the room, which, is what it is. But I kept getting invited back because I know what I'm talking about. Because I have the knowledge, I have the education, and I have the confidence, and I do, it's not that I don't have imposter syndrome, or, I kind of look around like, what am I doing here? But, I come in still, and I represent accordingly. So yeah, early in my career, definitely very male and white. And let me tell you, like, as I stepped into venture and stepped more into venture, I haven't moved away from the other asset classes, but as I step more into venture, I think because also I'm in an African venture, it's been amazing to just, like, these are rooms of Black people, like these are rooms of African people, like, and they're brilliant. And it's just like, yes, still very male, but we're getting more women into this industry, which has been great. But yeah, it's just it's an interesting juxtaposition. But yeah, it just early in my career, yeah, it was interesting, but not uncomfortable. I will say not uncomfortable.
Definitely. I think, I don't remember the exact name of the report, but it was a pretty recent report, an investment report, and in terms of the number of female-led startups or female or founding teams that have at least one female in amongst them, the number has definitely been increasing largely across the African continent. Even at Afrika Startup Lab, we see a lot of very, very smart and very engaged female coming through with their ideas, and just very ambitious, and they got it. So like, it's it's a trend, and it's just going to continue being that way. So there's another question that came around, aside from risk and return on investment, what are the other key pointers or metrics that investors look out for investing in Africa tech specifically during and post-COVID?
So I think a lot of investors want to know what the COVID effects are on the business or on the sector. I think a lot of investors, obviously, for obvious reasons, if you're looking at any of our public stock markets, want to invest in companies that are benefiting from COVID. And, another point, like in terms of post-COVID, I don't think this has ever changed within the pandemic, but a lot of investors want to see, besides risk and reward, they want to see the path to reward, particularly when investing on the continent. And, sometimes I get a little annoyed with the question there's investors who will just ask, so how do I get my money back? I get annoyed with that lens, because I believe as an investor, our mindset should be investing because we believe in the company, we believe in what they're solving for. We know that it's going to benefit a lot of people, and they're just going to grow and make money doing it. And inherently, our exit will come. And so I just get annoyed with the exit first mentality that a lot of investors across the board come with, but I think that it completely fails when you're coming into it in an African context, because the market is just so different. Like, the path to exit may not be clear, or it may be that you have to engineer your exit. So you got to do a little bit more work. Ultimately, though, I just think that we have to invest with the lens that we believe that the company is going to grow because they're providing a service or a product that the market is thirsty for. And because of all of those things being met, we're going to exit. We're going to exit, right? And so I think that's one thing that hasn't changed, but I think investors would do well to stop being so exit focused.
It's about the journey as well, right? So I think investors should definitely want to participate in the journey, and not, like you're saying, just be exit focused, even though that financial return does matter. A lot of questions coming in here. What industries are people / investors most interested in investing in Africa right now?
That's great. So I will say fintech hands down. But I'll say, in my opinion, some investors share this opinion. It's getting, it's a little saturated. It's getting a little saturated. But fintech for sure. And then some emerging trends that I think are just really not just on trend, but on time is logistics and transportation. Especially as we see the African Continental Free Trade Agreement coming on, like we have to get, and we talk about this in our clubhouse room, this market fragmentation. We've got to start solving that problem. We're seeing a lot of startups coming into that space. Education for sure, especially in a pandemic world, obviously have accelerated distance learning or remote or online learning. Healthcare is inherent, and it's really about time that we solve for healthcare in Africa through a variety of means. But we're seeing a lot of technology startups take on the space. A little caveat to fintech is insurance, and I think that is an amazing opportunity right now. Is insurance, which is practically non-existent on the continent, and how companies are going to come in and basically develop a brand new market, but for the African context and for the African, discretionary income levels, right? And so a lot of work is being done, which has been really, really amazing. Energy, solar, clean energy tech, sustainability, those that market is hot. It's very hot right now. And the last one, which I always want, the last one is agriculture. Agriculture, while it's been around, I think as an investment trend for a while, it really hasn't, we haven't really seen that acceleration like we've seen, like, let's say in fintech. We really haven't seen, many or a lot of companies kind of crack whatever that nut is around agriculture, which, is capital intensive, labor intensive, right? And so what is the innovation within that sector, whether it's technology based or not? But so those I would say are the trends that are definitely will be invested in this next decade.
And do you have your personal favorites? And maybe can you kind of, as you're talking about maybe in the industries where you've placed bets or where you're really, really bullish on, maybe specific regions where you've seen, the market being ripe for innovation, where you've seen some success?
So we have invested in all of those sectors I mentioned, except for education. Still haven't found, because a lot of education organizations that I've spoken to are more nonprofit. So, and we can't invest in nonprofits. We need to invest in a corporate entity. So that's kind of been the challenge for us anyway, in terms of investing in the education space. When it comes to countries, of course, we're naturally in Nigeria, Ghana, Uganda, and we're as a firm, we've been moving more into southern Africa, not South Africa, but just Southern Africa, which, is a very nascent market still, but with a lot of the conflict settling, and a lot of rebuilding and recovering happening, a lot of regulatory, and I'm thinking about Rwanda in particular, a lot of the regulatory bodies, and even Zambia, a lot of regulatory bodies, opening up the ease of business. We really think that is a ripe opportunity that a lot of investors are steering clear of. A lot of investors are just flocking to the coast, Ghana, Nigeria, South Africa, Kenya. And we believe that the Southern Africa is going to be a really hotbed for innovation in this next decade and beyond. I think it's going to take some time, but we liken those as well. And yeah, in terms of sectors in our portfolio, we have energy, we have a solar company, we have transportation, we have healthcare, we have fintech. And we also have a blockchain. And so I haven't even spoken on blockchain. And so we prefer to invest in blockchain as a part of your technology stack, as opposed to, just investing in Bitcoin. per se. We did look at a company though that was building an exchange for Bitcoin, so it's not like it's off the table. But yeah, we definitely do look at and we do prefer companies that are tech enabled or building tech solutions. But given the nature of the corporate scene on the continent, we are open to talking to SMEs. In fact, we're entering diligence with a company in the Congo that is a waste management company, right? So not necessarily tech driven at all. But if you've been on the continent, plastic waste is a huge problem. And so we just find that to be an extremely lucrative opportunity still to invest in.
Very, very interesting. More questions. Question around what your perspective on the African trade agreement, and how do you see it affecting the African continent, and how soon?
So I believe it'll affect the continent this decade. I'm super bullish on AFTA. I just think it's long overdue. And I just think that we all need to be patient. I think we all, the last several years, we all thought because we've been hearing about it for the last several years, that it feels like nothing is happening. We all have to remember that implementation date was January 1, 2021. Okay. So the time that we've been hearing about it was ratification, signing on, agreeing to be a part of it, right? And implementation has just started, literally 60 days in. So we have to give it some time for these different countries that have been highly fragmented, that have their own, dialects, cultures, tribes, regulatory frameworks. We have to give them the time necessary to hash out whatever that needs to be hashed out, so that we can open up the continent as a one economic bloc. I mean, if Europe is any indication, it's going to be challenging, especially as we go through economic cycles. So we have to allow the regulators and the government officials and the lawyers to work out this agreement. I'm super bullish on it. I think it's going to make doing business for companies so much easier, particularly if you're in products and services. It will be next. I think the next horizon for it is going to be the free movement of people, which I am so excited about, because can I tell you, I just went through the Nigerian visa process this past week. Listen, we need to move more freely. All right. I compare it to Uganda, the Uganda visa process, and it's just night and day. And, I have dual citizenship in Nigeria, and it was easier to get a Ugandan visa. So I just, I'm looking, I know that this iteration of the AFTA won't include the freedom, won't include the movement of people. I've been asking, okay? So it won't include that. Starting with products, they're starting with and then services, and I think financial services will be first, which will be very interesting, because it's going to unlock huge economies like Ethiopia, like Egypt, right? That are, have very closed financial service sectors. It's going to open those up if they agree to. And so that's the thing, like countries are going to pick and choose which sectors. And so I just think it's super important that collaboration and patience is key and prioritized, and that we're all patient in allowing this to develop. And then I think lastly, we got to think about currencies, and what does this mean for exchange rates, and how does digital currencies play a role in allowing for more ease of money and exchange of money, and the balance between a monetary policy, because the countries on the continent are so different in terms of scale and size, economic scale and size, that they still need to have some sovereignty when it comes to monetary policy. And so having a single currency for the whole continent doesn't really make sense. I mean, you look at the euro and what it did to Greece, what it's done to Italy, so there has to be that balance. But so I think that will be like the last peg, will be the currency piece. But I'm just super bullish on it. I think it's an excellent move for the continent.
So you've just let us know here that you have specific insight into the implementation of that agreement. So in terms of the rollout, So I'm just curious, and this could just be an estimation, but you said that around the first phase, enabling financial services. When do you think that specific first phase will come to be or will be implemented?
Well, guys, so financial services and then goods, right? Just products.
Okay. Yeah.
You guys know our people. It's gonna be like 18, 24 months. I know you want me to say 6 months. No, y'all.
That'd be nice, right?
We're talking about 55 countries. Like, no. So yeah, I like, that's why I stress patience and collaboration. Let folks collaborate. And I think it's going to be regionally. Like, what is ECOWAS? How do they trade? And I forgot the name of the East African bloc. How are they trading? Then, North Africa coming into sub-Saharan Africa, so we can finally think of Africa as all of Africa. And I think when we say Africa, we all think of sub-Saharan. And North Africa is Africa, right? And so I think that we, when it comes to implementation timeline, as bullish as I am, I'm also very realistic. And I think 24 months is actually quick. When we're talking about policy change, this is different than anything that's ever been done for this region of the world. And so I think that even a 24-month, 36-month time horizon is actually kind of quick. So, and I think it will take that long. I would say 18 to 36 months. I think 2 years would be phenomenal.
And 24 months is a good time horizon for a forward-looking enterprise to really position themselves to take advantage of those changes when they come to be. So I like that estimate. Question around, what would you love to see more entrepreneurs doing? So what specific areas do you love for entrepreneurs to go into that you feel are currently underserved or do not have, enough solutions?
So I mentioned one. I think waste management, recycling. I just think it's a huge opportunity, and mostly because the municipalities, local governments are just not taking that on. And and even if we think of the Western model of waste, it is private sector that that does that, but in collaboration or in contract with the local government. So there does have to be that contract there. Are you really going to charge individual households for this, or do you have to you have to be in contract, you have to be in communication and in speaking with local government or federal government, however your jurisdiction works. So I actually think waste is not sexy. So no one's looking at it, but I think that is tremendous, because just traveling from city to city, even within Nigeria, just the waste, is just it's shameful. And so I think that is one that's just because it's not super sexy. On top of that, I think the agricultural and manufacturing supply chain, I think, is one that I love to see more activity in. And that's across the whole supply chain, whether it's the sourcing of the actual commodity or it's, manufacturing. I think that if you're doing the sourcing, I think it's really, really crucial that you either engage with an African-based manufacturer or that you just build that part of the value chain yourself, right? And we have to become more of a value add continent and not just a commodity continent. Or a place that we're sourced and then the value add gets taken outside and then exported in. Like we have to break that cycle. And so I would love to see more manufacturers, more companies doing that work. And there is actually a lot of manufacturers on the continent. And so it's really incumbent on us as investors to provide access to capital for those enterprises. I think there's actually a lot of even women-led manufacturing companies, whether it's paper. I've talked to a paper mill owner, I've talked to she does the ink for screen prints on t-shirts. She does the ink though, I've talked to these were women entrepreneurs, and they just need access to capital. And because it's not tech, right? It's not that sexy tech. It's difficult for them to access that capital. So yeah, I would love to see not just more founders in that space, but even just more investors in the space.
Amazing. So we've come to the top of the hour here. Are there any pieces of advice that you would leave, want to provide entrepreneurs, founders on the African continent as they continue building, great solutions that are facing the challenges and opportunities that we have on the continent?
Yes. So number one, you're in a brilliant space and at a brilliant time to build whatever it is that you're building. It's going to be challenging, so just keep going. And when you're looking for capital, cast as wide a net as you can to find the capital that you are looking for. And I would say for founders in building for Africa, be open to different types of financing schemes. I know that we hammer investing and equity and equity and equity. But if you're more mature, I don't like to see startups taking on debt, but consider debt, consider rev sharing model schemes, consider more dividend-based equity financing where you have the option to buy back your shares. Be very cognizant and mindful of your dilution, because I hate to see founders not owning a significant part of the company that they built. We want to see that you're still maintaining ownership over your company. And lastly, oh my goodness, I just want all of you to consider options, employee options as you are hiring. And I know that your employees don't care anything about stocks and options. I know they just want money. Stocks and options don't pay the bills, especially at the early stage. But I think it is imperative that we educate more of us to consider options and stocks, how they work, and that how they create wealth for the people who are building your business or building your company alongside of you. And so I really just implore all of you, especially founders, that you should consider a little bit of dilution to allow your employees, especially your earliest employees, to participate in the growth and the wealth building that your company is inherently providing you. Extend that access also to your earliest employees through an employee stock option pool. I think that's so critically important. And as we can educate more of us on how stocks even build wealth for us, right? I think you can be better managers of your cash by providing, equity instead of doing all cash packages. So that is actually one of my soapboxes right now. I'm just on we got to get more employees on the continent educated around employee options and stock options and accepting that as an equity package so that our founders don't have to raise so much and they don't have to deploy so much cash or burn so much cash when they do raise it.
Do you see any pushback from the founders, especially given the fact that they would maybe prefer to just pay salaries?
Absolutely, I do. I still push back though. But but yes.
Well, do you want our money or not? Is that the question you asked?
Establish a stock pool. Really? So I'm not yet that kind of investor. I do, respect my founders' decisions around their companies. But yes, I do look for employee stock option pools as a part of diligence, and I ask about it. And every single time, oh, our employees don't care about that. Oh, our employees don't want that. And I get it. People want to be paid, particularly on the continent. But we have to implement it more. It's actually a smart maneuver for the founder because you're going to manage your cash better. You're going to have more cash to manage as opposed to putting together full cash salary packages and for compensation. I just actually think it's smart business to do so.
Great. Actually, a very, very nice question came in here, and I'd really love to ask that if you do not mind.
Sure.
And it reads, how can organizations like Afrika Startup Lab help entrepreneurs succeed in your experience? What are the skills that you've seen that are missing or that could be improved among majority of the entrepreneurs and founders?
Okay, excellent question. I think I think accounting and finances, I think that's a skill set that has to be built up. And it doesn't have to be like, you're not a CFO, you hire that person. But basic accounting, being able to keep your books, particularly in the beginning, is just foundational, because being able to produce a financial statement when an investor wants to will separate you from a lot of other companies. Being able to produce financials when, another like grant opportunity, or, in the case of a pandemic and the government wants to give out free money, being able to produce financial statements just puts you in a position for access to capital. I think that, I had I'm remembering one of my founders who like finally did his books, got audited financial statements and everything. And well, like, this is interesting, like to see the company from this view. I'm like, isn't it? Like, exactly. It's a whole other dimension. Like to see, it's one thing to count users and how many products have shipped, and it's a whole other thing to analyze cash flow and to see how, your cash flow hits your balance statement, and how your, the accounts receivable hits the cash flow statement. It is very interesting how it all fits together. So yeah, I think that skill set. I think hiring, being a good manager, and not even hiring. I think we all emphasize hiring. Retention, I think, is even more important. And how do you retain your customers? How do you keep them intrinsically motivated beyond cash, beyond their compensation package? How do you build team, create a culture, a culture that's going to scale? So I think a lot of those kind of HR skills, those human capital skills, are also super, super important, because those are things that are foundational. You got to get it right. You kind of got to get it right at the beginning so that your company can just kind of go through the growing pains a little bit more gracefully than having to kind of break everything and fix it, because now instead of being a 3-person team, you're a 50-person team. The culture and everything is just, and team building and who reports to who, all of that is very, very different, right? And that's just, 50 is still not considered a very large organization, but for a startup that kind of like grows like that, it can be, it can make or break the company, right? And so I just think, finances and human resources are 2 skills that accelerators and incubators can really help founders with.
Thank you very much, Lydia. This was an amazing conversation. Thank you very much for making the time and for sharing your knowledge and insight with the people on this call and all the followers of Afrika Startup Lab. And I look forward to talking with you soon.
Yes, me too. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Fun conversation. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye, Lydia.
Bye.
Bye.